All right, collectors, John Parker here. Let me tell you one of the most compelling stories in coin lore. Now, I've got Jay Parker here with me. He's going to kind of interact with me a little bit as I tell this story to you. Have you ever heard the name Francis LeRoy Henning?
I have not.
Okay. He was born in Ariel, New Jersey, in September of 1891. By the 1930s, he began counterfeiting $5 bills.
Okay.
$5 bills in the 1930s, which at the time would have about the same purchasing power as a modern $100 bill. So, you know, pretty pricey thing.
By the way, just random aside, the only counterfeit bill I've ever gotten, a $5.
Was a $5 bill.
Mm-hmm. On a cruise ship, change that somebody made on one of those stops. Tried to put it in the bank, and they said no.
No, this isn't going to work. So he was a pretty serious counterfeit threat, and the authorities did catch up with him relatively quickly. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to 3 years in prison. But while he was in prison, his mind began working about how he could get back into this. The criminal mind is not always Mensa material, let's say. So here was his plan. He got released in 1939, and he already had a plan to counterfeit not $5 bills, not $1 bills, but nickels.
You had to counterfeit a lot of nickels to make a dent here.
Can you imagine? His second attempt at counterfeiting, he decided to focus on nickels, and that way, in his mind, he could fly under the radar and face less scrutiny as he tried to pass off these nickels. So fully in business by 1953, he rented a building in his hometown of Ariel to house his do-it-yourself coin press. The new operation, listen to this name he came up with, Child's Plastic Molded Products Company.
Child Plastic Molded Products. I was trying to figure out if it made any sense
So,
as like an acronym or something.
A kid's, we're making kid toys here. So while conducting his counterfeit activities, Henning was fully employed by the firm Day and Zimmerman as an engineer in downtown Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Where the mint is? Or?
Well, there is a mint in Philadelphia. Yeah. The first mint was in Philadelphia. Yeah. So this guy, full-time job as an engineer, and his side hustle is counterfeiting nickels. It's just a crazy world.
What a waste of time it almost feels like. I mean, you're talking about what had to have been a decent paying job if you're an engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. So focusing mainly on nickels, he produced dies for the following coins dated 39, 1944, 46, 47, and 43. Since all the Henning nickels appear in circulated grades, okay, you can't find one that looks uncirculated.
Sure, yeah.
That means that he used the transfer process to create his dies, right? He took a worn nickel to create his dies through the transfer process. The problem that he ran into stemmed from his coins that were dated 1944, okay?
Okay.
So what the U.S. did during the wartime, 42, 43, 44, and 45, was made 35% silver nickels. By the way, the war nickels have no nickel in them. They're made of copper and silver, and that's one of the reasons that they don't look very good. They're extremely tarnished because copper and silver don't mix very well.
We needed nickel for some type of war effort thing?
Correct. Bullets.
Okay.
Nickels and bullets. So here's the deal. For these special issue war nickels, the U.S. changed the mint mark, and on the back of the coin, the Jefferson Memorial, instead of the mint mark being on the front like there were previously, they put a big giant mint mark over the top, at the center at the top, a big giant P for the Philadelphia, a big giant D for the Denver, big giant S up there. Well, Henning wasn't paying that good of attention. Again, Mensa material here.
What, he put an H?
No. He didn't know about the wartime nickel mint marks, and so he put just a regular
on the front. Yeah.
On the front of his. Mm-hmm. So he didn't get it. So it's interesting that Henning claimed to have lost money doing this, since the main reason to produce counterfeit coins is to make money. Listen to some of the math of this. This is crazy. According to his own testimony in court, he spent $1,800 on monel, M-O-N-E-L, monel,
Okay.
which is an alloy that's 79% copper, 20% nickel, and about 0.5% iron. In early 1954, from the Scoville Manufacturing Company, even before his labor production cost of his counterfeit nickels, he had 3.5 cents in each coin. So the coin face value is a nickel. Before he's done anything to it, just the raw material to make it, 3.5 cents in. Sure. All right, so our profit margin is already very tiny. It's estimated that Henning made only $5,000 in revenue before he began dumping his stock to dispose of the evidence in a couple of bodies of water nearby, the Cooper Creek and Schuylkill River.
So he just starts dumping.
He had to, because they were onto him. He threw hundreds of thousands of coins with a face value of approximately $20,000 into those two creeks.
And it clearly didn't work. He got
clearly
caught,
didn't work. So. He was still about $2,000 short of his metal costs. Okay. On top of that loss, the government imposed a 3-year prison term and a $5,000 fine to Henning. So he had to go to jail again for 3 years and pay them $5,000 more. At the end of his counterfeiting run, it turns out Henning lost about $7,000, adjusted for gross inflation, about $71,000 today for his nickel counterfeit endeavors. And again, crime doesn't pay, literally.
Well, I mean, if you're thinking about like that inflation number, just napkin math, he's making 15 cents a crime. I mean, we're talking about a huge waste of time for a guy that was an engineer.
I know, you would think. I mean, you would think the engineer side of his brain would have said, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
It makes me think that he was just like into it for entertainment reasons. Like he just liked the idea of
being able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Maybe so. There was some intrigue. By 1955, the authorities had arrested Henning. Also, the U.S. Mint had returned to the cupronickel standard for nickels and was able to melt and refine a large number of the blanks they recovered from his facility,
wow.
as well as approximately 40,000 coins salvaged from the Cooper Creek, used for striking authentic coins that year. So they put them back in their giant smelting pot and made new nickels.
So they had to, I mean, they're dredging a river and pulling out just hunks of metal, basically, I guess, at that point, huh?
Okay, so listen to this. Further, this is how he got found out. The first deposit of counterfeit nickels at the bank raised eyebrows because all the coins were of the same date. And so,
yeah, because like if you had just had a bunch of coins, you wouldn't just have a series.
Why
of
do
them.
you have 20,000 nickels all from 1944? Well, he claimed to be a vending machine operator. The incident spooked him a little bit. As a result, he claimed to have created 12 dies, 6 obverse, 6 reverse, of various dates. Later, local New Jersey numismatist Harmon Rogers spotted the incongruity on a wartime nickel without the large mint mark, reported his findings to the government in 1954. So somebody found one of these nickels that didn't have the right mint mark and reported him. The Secret Service finally took serious notice when a teller at the Pennsauken National Bank in Pennsauken, New Jersey, reported a few months later that he had $2.40 in suspected counterfeit nickels from Henning. Incidentally, the bank was located between Ariel, his hometown, and Philadelphia, meaning that Henning had to have deposited the coins during his daily commutes back and forth.
And so he thinks, hey, I'm 10 minutes out of town. They'll never
get it.
I don't know this for certainty, but if we walked down the hall and cracked open a vending machine, the dates are not all going to be the same on the coins.
Of course not.
So that story, how can someone be so smart that they know how to do this process and yet so dumb at the basic logic of how to cover it up? It's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. So at the time, there weren't years and years worth of Jefferson nickels. So it wouldn't have been as, like if you open up a vending machine now, you probably have 50 years worth of dates. Well, they didn't have 50 years worth at that time. All right, so how do you know if you have a Henning nickel? Because these are counterfeit and they're out there. He passed off a lot of them, all right? Besides the missing mint mark on the 44, there are several ways to identify a Henning nickel. First, many of the coins dated 1944 are too heavy, right? And weigh 5.4 grams instead of the 5 gram. So even if you have a worn out nickel, it might lose tenth of a gram, maybe,
well,
being very worn.
Some of the wearing is probably compression, where it's not actually losing the material; it's just punching it down.
But 5.4 is way off and way out of the realm of normal expectancy. So that would be your first clue.
Are they legal to own? I mean, do you have to turn it over?
Technically, it's illegal to own counterfeit currency and coinage.
Okay.
Technically.
But I'm sure there are people
But the Secret Service is probably not going to knock on your door saying, we heard you have a Henning nickel, because collectors have them.
Yeah.
All right. Other examples average 4.85 grams, which is well within the weight tolerance, but the 5.4 is so far out. Another way, this is the main way to know, there is a void or a low spot on the left-hand leg of the R in pluribus on the back.
Okay.
So at the top it says E pluribus unum, right? Well, that leg has a hole in it. It's just like a gap that's there.
And that's from him pressing it in and not getting...
His model, somehow he screwed it up, right? Mm-hmm. This defect is very distinctive and doesn't appear on all of Henning's reverse dies, but it does on many of them. Some examples of both the 39 and 44 dates have a late-stage die crack stretching from the dome of Monticello to the U.S. in the word pluribus. That's another way to tell, is that die crack. This crack means that Henning's dies must have been poorly made and began to crack partway through production. And since Henning stated it only took 4 hours for him to create each die, this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So shoddy work for the engineer. Additionally, there are a series of raised dots on both sides of many specimens. Examples include a raised dot between on the obverse God and we, as well as below Jefferson's cheek and in the field above the left side of Monticello. You can look all this up on the internet and see examples.
So do you think that's, because you talked about he's using this method where he's taking a coin and pressing it into some type of mold.
Got trash in there.
Yeah, even a piece of dust, I'm sure, could be a dot. Yeah.
So his standards of operation didn't arise to the level
it's not
of
a sterile environment.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I collect them? You asked the question already. Today, Henning nickels are relatively rare. The 44 dated type is usually the only example available to collectors. It's important to note that technically it's illegal to own any counterfeit currency or coinage, but highly likely that the Secret Service would be knocking on your door to own one of these. So yeah, and some of them have sold for hundreds of dollars, right? But do your research and find out, what the die markers are for those so that you can spot them. By the way, if you want to read more about this, there's a great article that's sourced in My Information Today, written for coinweek.com by a man named Tyler Rossi back in 2023. So look up Tyler, look up that article, The Story of the Henning Nickel. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on this YouTube video. Check us out also on Instagram, also our website, parkerpennies.com. Come see me on my streams on Whatnot. You can find me at Parker Pennies. John Parker with parkerpennies.com.